Welcome to episode 227. Tonight on Book Chat, joining me are my read-along co-host, Casey and Nicola. We're discussing the next three book bloggers, one series read-along titled Vision in Silver, the third book in the other series by Anne Bishop. Stay tuned. Today's episode is brought to you by audiobooks.com. New customers get one free audiobook when using our promo code AudioShelf. You just need to enter the code AudioShelf on the sign-up page, then click Apply, then fill out the rest of your account info. Support this podcast by using our code AudioShelf and get your first audiobook free. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Join in this book discussion by finding me on Twitter, as well as my book blogger co-host. Tweet at us using our special hashtag, 3bloggers1series. That's using the numeric 3 and 1. Again, it's hashtag 3bloggers1series. If Twitter isn't your thing, no worries. You can call in and leave an internet voice message via SpeakPipe. Leave us a voicemail and we'll reply to your feedback here on the next read-along episode. Or you can join the Facebook group, Shelf Addiction Official, and talk about the series with us there. I hope to hear your thoughts on tonight's discussion. The links for everything I've mentioned are below in the show notes. Before we jump into this discussion, I have a quick note. I want you to get the full enjoyment out of this conversation, so I recommend that you read the book first. This is a read-along, so of course, spoiler alert. You've been warned. Hey everyone, welcome back to another 3 Bloggers, 1 Series read-along discussion, and today we are talking about Vision in Silver, which is the third book in the other series by Anne Bishop, and joining me are Casey and Nicola. As always, welcome back, ladies. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi everybody, I'm Casey. I'm the head editor/owner of Heart Full of Ink, and I've been a book reviewer at Literary Escapism since 2010, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, welcome.
I'm Nicola, and I have been blogging at alphaheroes.net since 2007, so it's kind of an old thing, and participating in the online book review world for quite a while. So I'm happy to be here and can't wait to talk about this book number 3. We're on number 3.
Yeah. Welcome, Nicola. Okay, I'm super excited for this conversation because I have this suspicion that I bet we kind of feel similarly, or maybe we don't. Let's find out.
Yeah, we cheated and had a kind of a pre-conversation on this one to tee up the podcast.
It couldn't be helped, though. It couldn't be helped. It kind of just happened, so, you know.
Yeah. All right, kick us off, Tamara. What's our first topic?
Okay, well, let's talk about... let's start with the plot. All right. So, we're obviously progressing the plot.
Right.
And... you know, Meg is doing her thing, having visions, and here we are dealing with a murder. That's pretty much what happens right in the beginning, if I remember correctly. And I'm thinking it's one thing, because honestly, I did my whole don't read the synopsis before you start reading thing, and I wasn't really sure what I was getting into, but I thought it was one thing, and it turned out to be something else. But I felt like there were tons of plot holes, and that kind of made me sad. And it was slow too. I don't know. Did you guys like the plot of this book? I mean, let's talk about what it was a little bit, actually, since I'm using the assumption that everyone's read the book if you're here. So
yeah.
So, you know, I typically would call this second book sag in a trilogy. But this has got 5 books, so maybe it just took a little longer to get there. So I've seen a number of trilogies where each book is not that independent. It's really you have to read all 3 books to get the whole story, right? But the middle book is all kind of like the first book, something terrible happens and everybody reacts and the survivors regroup and figure stuff out. And then the last book is the big giant conflict, right? And the middle book is kind of like getting all the pieces in place and collecting supplies and positioning things. And it can be a little bit less interesting unless you really love logistics. I this is not exactly that. This series isn't taking exactly that kind of framing, I don't think. But I feel like we've took us to this book to get to that saggy part, right?
Yeah.
Casey, what do you think about the timing, the pacing?
I was actually really surprised. It felt like half the book took place in like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, everything's happening really fast. And then all of a sudden weeks were passing. And it was just like, oh yeah, now things are slowing down. And I thought that was a little off.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me with the dates.
I wasn't even paying attention to that. I was just like reading the sequence of events. So I didn't. If you'd asked me to take a week or 5 months, I would not have been able to tell you, other than the way the seasons are changing a little bit. So now they're planting a garden, and it's not winter anymore. And but I didn't notice that like a number of weeks had gone by.
Oh, I definitely did.
Okay, so chapter 1 starts on the 10th, day 10, Thay's Day, May's 10th. And then chapter 36 is Moon's Day, May's Day 14th. That's 4 days. 36 chapters in 4 days.
That's
a lot. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then I feel like
noticed that because listening to the audiobook, of course, they say that the header every time they start. So I'm like, oh, this is the same day, next day. It's like it was blaring to me. I'm like, oh goodness. So yeah.
And then the last day is like the end of the month. So 2 weeks later, it just kind of like trickles through. I'm like, that pacing was a little weird to me.
Time jump.
Okay, so if you skim the headers, it's not going to bother you.
I'm sorry, I pay attention to the details.
You are awesome at that. Me, I'm just kind of like taking in the gestalt, right? So, but yeah, I read fast and I tend to skim over some things unless they jump out at me. So
yeah, I wish I had done some skimming, like kind of fast forwarding here and there, because there was just like a lot of times I felt that it was a really wordy, a lot of description, almost overkill at times. I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. I know. Okay, let's move on. Like, when is something going to happen? And don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed the book though, but it just was blaring to me more than in the last book. I don't know. Maybe it was filler. I'm not sure. It's just something about the pacing and the amount of explanation needed at certain times just seemed overkill to me.
So what I think happened is that Anne Bishop got to the third book, realized that all the other prophecy girls were out in the world, and she needed them to not survive the way Meg did. You know, like Meg just kind of clicked in the courtyard and everything was perfect and everything was happy. And she realized that can't happen with every girl, or else there's no issue. There's no plot line. There's no conflict or whatever. So she came up with this whole overstimulation thing. Except that never happened to Meg.
Yes.
That never happened to Meg.
Oops.
Yes.
So now she had to write that in, making it happen now. Which I
seemed stupid and out of place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
when
I was
she had the little meltdown over the CDs being moved, it was like, what?
Yeah.
She's lived with all this upheaval and all this change, and that tips her over? What?
Right.
I felt like they probably had been moved before by the crows jumping all over her counter, or the puppies trying to get to the cookies, or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a non-chaotic world she lives in.
Yeah.
And then the whole walking into a store thing, she definitely walked into stores in the first book. She walked into that dog store place to get beds and the cookies and had no problem there.
And Howling Good Reads, right? She's in the bookstore all the time.
Think of how much crap is in a bookstore. Come on.
Right?
Everywhere.
Visual stimulation, homemade.
Yeah. Everything's moving. Nothing is ever constant. But she had to create this issue so that the other girls could be explained.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that. That is actually what I had written down. I'm like, why all of a sudden? That was so annoying. I'm like, but her whole little quote unquote pack of human friends, they've been in her space before. And they've never touched anything ever? They've never moved anything or?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
The crows would literally pick up the pens and move them around. Is that not
right. That
moving
was a
her
big
stuff too
deal in the
much?
first. That was like a big deal in the first book. How she had to negotiate with them to keep the stuff that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
She bought them the toys that they could play with instead.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's almost like Meg's character takes like a giant step backwards as far as her development,
Mm-hmm.
in some ways. I don't know, that kind of did rub me the wrong way a little bit. And I mean, I still, like, I know how old she is, and she's a full-fledged adult, right? She's like 24 or something. And I get that she's been in this environment her whole life, but she's quickly, well, at least she was quickly adapting, right? She was learning, reading books on dating, the whole nine. And then it's like, I don't know, just something about her just really, I didn't feel like her character evolved at all during this book. Not really.
She devolved, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, so let me take a step back and say I still enjoyed reading the book. I still wanted to read the next book, but part of the reason why I wanted to get to the next book is because nothing happened in this book, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to get to something
it's a setup.
happening. Yeah, it's all set up for a conflict, which may be in the next book or maybe in book 5, or I don't know when it's going to be.
It better happen in the next book, or I'm going to throw something.
But see, this is also what's funny. Like, they used, I guess, what's his face's ex-wife dying kind of as the jumping off point for, people coming and try to find his daughter. And, it kind of like jump started this whole thing. But as they don't really care about humans, not really. I mean, so it just seems weird that all of a sudden, now I know Simon has been making slow changes up until up until this point. But in this book, he's like, okay, we'll do this. We'll do that. Okay, come here. We'll help you. Okay, we'll do this. And it's like, he's just like, just go for broke. Like, no pause, so no nothing.
That didn't bother me as much because I felt like maybe that's really what happens in this book, is that the pack and Simon hits this tipping point of, maybe welcoming is not quite the right word, but expanding their pack, right? So he kind of explicitly says, all right, these people I got to take care of them now. They're part of my pack. I can't not do that. And Monty is part of the pack. And so that means Monty's child is part of the pack. That means they've got to help Monty's kid survive, which means learning not to piss off the wolves and the elementals. So
I mean, I get that. I do. It just seemed like really like a switch just flipped, and it was like, okay, we're just running.
It was gradual enough.
Yeah.
Okay, it didn't bother me too much, but it is a change for. I mean, this whole thing is about how the Lakeside Pack is changing, right? That's this whole series, and that's going to be the nugget that the next world catastrophe from the elementals is going to spin on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with both of you. Like, I saw his character moving this way, like from book 1, this is where he's been moving, but it happened really fast. Like I said, it all happened in like 3 days.
Well, but it was a whole book, so that.
I mean, okay, so it's the whole book.
34 chapters, come on.
36 chapters. Like, come on, that's 4
Okay.
days. Like, okay, so he buys a house, he meets a random human, he's like, you're a lawyer? All right, you and your family are moving into our house now. We're trusting you with all of our law stuff, and we'll just give you a bag of money to give to the other woman.
Well, yeah, but he's the one that gave up the controller, though. He wasn't just a random lawyer.
But they hadn't ever really met or interacted before. Like, he hadn't been to the courtyard before.
Yeah.
What were you starting to say?
Like, the other people, they've worked with him, they knew him, and this guy's just brand new. But, hey, you're good to go. Come on, it's good.
Well, I think it's a little bit of the enemy of my enemy going on, right? Because he was forced out of his house because he went... he did something for the elementals, the others. He did something for his human pack and against the human first and last guys, and he was suffering because of that, right? He got forced out of his house. They tried to run him off the road. The elementals saved him. So that makes him part of the pack.
I still feel like that was too rushed. Like, he just met him at the police station, and he's already like, all right, you're working for us now. You and your family can move in. We'll give you food. We'll give you whatever you want.
Okay. I didn't think it was rushed. I thought it was justified, so...
Yeah, I mean, but they needed an attorney, and oh, bam, there you are. Wonderful. Okay, great. But then you know what else I noticed? Like, I feel like that first scene where, I don't know if you guys remember, but when she first cut herself, you know, when she went into that fury, and you know, well, she didn't cut herself. Who cut her? What's his name? I can't remember. Nathan. When she went into that whole thing, and then they heard her, you know, say her words, and then they didn't tell her what she said. I'm like, why didn't you tell her what she said right away? And then as I'm reading along, I'm like, oh, wait, okay, you're just using this so that you can drop whatever prophecy you see fit when you need it. So you're like kind of unveiling the prophecy slowly so you don't have to like account for everything you say in the beginning. I kind of was like, what? That was weird. In other instances, they are like asking questions and they're going over it with her. But this time, you know, Mary Jo or whoever just runs off and she's like, I don't want to tell her what we're not going to talk about it.
I think you're mixing up two different ones, right?
No.
So in
the
book
first
opens,
one.
Yeah, the first one, not with Nathan. That was a different one.
So
you're right.
The first one is the controlled one, and they won't tell her what she says, and then she has the meltdown 3 or 4 days later with Nathan and the little girl and the ponies.
Yeah, I'm talking about the first one, the controlled one that she did with her human friend.
Yeah. I don't know, that was unusual, but it drew me in a little bit as a plot device. Like, oh, I wonder if it was that bad. I wonder what's going on.
Really? I didn't think that. I'm like, why didn't you tell? I mean, like, what's the secret? I'm like, what's so bad? And then it was like not that bad. I mean, I felt like none of the stakes were high enough. I'm like, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't like all her friends are going to die. And, you know, I don't know. I just felt like it's kind of wasted. Like, maybe they could have used that on the second one where, you know, Simon was in danger and he might die. Maybe I'm just nitpicking.
And again, you know, this is a little bit, I think, of the inconsistency around the prophecies and how the buzzing works and how her need to cut works. Because sometimes it seems like, you know, so is it voluntary or not, right? So is it just that she's addicted, or is it an instinct that your friends are in trouble, right? So this book talked quite a bit about how, you know, if she moved closer to the thing that might be in danger, then the buzzing got worse. And if she moved farther away from it, then things relaxed, which I thought was weird. Mm-hmm. You know, like she could kind of control what the prophecy was going to be about by focusing on something, a person or a thought or an image,
a place.
Well, yeah, but like there was the one where she realized it was about, she was looking at herself in the mirror and that she was the, you know, the danger or whatever it was. So I just thought I feel like the way the prophecies work is inconsistent, and like sometimes it's super urgent and sometimes it's not, and like why I don't quite understand where Bishop is going with you know, the controlled cuts and the instinct to cut when something might be terribly wrong. You know, it's kind of like I don't have a good feel for how that magic works, I guess, which is not necessarily great when you're 3 books into a series.
No, and not only, I mean, that, but the fact that now it's been revealed that you don't have to cut to have visions. You don't have to. Not everyone has to.
You can color pictures, or I assume they'll do other stuff, but...
Yeah.
Right.
It's just that they were only allowed to cut. So who knows? I mean, and that does kind of play back into the addiction. Like, you know, Meg, for real, if you explore yourself a little bit, maybe you have a different way to get visions besides cutting, and you just enjoy cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, she likes the pleasure, I think. Like, I think she enjoys it almost too much. Like, she knows it's a danger, but then every time she's like, oh, my friends are in danger, I'm going to cut myself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What did you guys think about the scene where they all kind of get mad at her for the cut that she made Nathan do?
I agree with it. I mean, she was out of control. She was completely out of control.
like I said, she's addicted to it.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised, and not in a bad way, but I was a little surprised that they were so harsh with her. Right, like everybody was like, "No, Meg, that was not right. You did a bad thing," and she really felt like she had no choice, and it was very addict like a heroin withdrawal or something.
Yeah, like a crackhead feels they have no choice but to steal and lie because that's what they have to. They need it. So
Right.
They went from cheating her with kid gloves and, oh, you made a prophecy, but we can't tell you anything, to, Meg, you're not allowed to do this. You're in the wrong. This is bad.
Well, I think the characters are realizing, I mean, they only have so many cuts before they die, apparently. So they're like, no one wants her to die. So it's like, why is that your first, inkling every time? And then they start breaking it down. Well, what did we get from that, really? We already knew this. Like, what was the point of you doing this? Was the payoff worth it? No. So stop it. And I get that because they don't want her to die.
Obviously,
it's
they
not
don't.
just that, though. It's not just that. It's that Nathan was actually really upset by that, and I think they made it seem like he was actually damaged by having to make that cut and not, help her with the bleeding afterwards because the wolves can't follow their instincts and lick the wound.
Yeah.
So they really kind of emphasized that she had put Nathan in danger, and put her friends in danger.
She did, though. If he had licked up the blood like his instinct would have, he could have died.
Yeah. Yep. If fire hadn't been there, he would have.
Yeah. And not only that, I imagine myself, let's just say, for argument's sake, that in real life, you had a friend that you needed to do this to, and you've never cut anyone. You've never, you see them losing their minds over here.
Right.
And they're like,
right.
and you're like, oh my God, I have to, do this.
Like, I'm not a surgeon. I don't want to cut anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's a protector.
Right. So, I mean, put in that position of having to hurt somebody is pretty awful.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
So I feel like they were fully within their rights to be upset at that situation, because I don't even think in the whole other, history of this series so far, I don't remember Meg being that far out of control. I mean, they made it seem like she was so frantic and out of her mind. I just don't recall her being like that ever.
The time she cut her chest open.
Times.
Remember, that's what
I think probably in each book there's been one or two times when she was kind of out of control.
But she was in control. I remember, I don't know if this was the first book or second book. There was some time where something happened and she knew she had to cut herself. She went to the bathroom, locked the door. She wasn't frantic and falling all over the place, even though she was obviously in an agitated state, but she was able to cut herself without killing herself. But I just feel like this was so much extra to me. I don't know.
Yeah. No, this is definitely extra. But in the second book, there was that time where Simon was sleeping over and she ran into the bathroom and cut a huge jagged cut through her chest, and he got so dopey off of her blood, and that's when they realized,
and that's how they found
the drug stuff. But yeah, she gets crazy every once in a while, or she's very, very focused, and again, inconsistencies.
Well, maybe with the new nurse woman, I think her name is Emma or something, maybe she can do a blood profit rehab or something.
I hope so.
Pam Ireland. I went and looked it up because I wanted more from her, right? So hopefully she'll...
Is that the same woman who's the nurse at the very end?
I think
thought there was somebody named Emily that showed up.
I think Emily is the
Emily Fair
woman that...
The nurse practitioner.
I thought...
She wants to work with Dr. Lorenzo. That's on like the last page.
Mm.
I have the book right here in my hands.
Right, so that's not the same woman who they introduced earlier. I thought it was. It's not.
No.
Oh
no, that's a different. That was Pam Ireland.
So the woman that's up at the in the Intuit colony is named Pam Ireland, and she seems like a really good person who has good instincts about what the girls need, but we didn't really get much more than that.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm interested in what she brings to the party, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, also, I feel like with the introduction of Pam and Emily, there seemed to be a lot more new characters in this book, too. Like, I don't remember meeting so many new characters in a book, like in book 2 or book 1. It just seems like a lot more people are introduced to this. Obviously, he's trying to grow his tribe, right? So that's probably why. It's just like a lot, I don't know, just thrown in really fast. Like, I didn't even catch that those were 2 different people. That's bad. I'm like, oh, where was I at? Like,
I mean, Emily was introduced on the last page.
Yeah.
Like, she'll be important later. Maybe.
Yeah, see, I'm looking at the last page and I'm not seeing. They're talking about going for burgers. What am I missing?
398.
Page 398. I've got the ebook.
Oh.
Steve Ferryman invited us all to go to Bursting Burgers in Ferryman Landing.
Sorry, it's on page 396, and Steve Ferryman introduces her. He says, "This is Emily Fair. She recently received her degree as a nurse practitioner."
Okay.
So.
That's, I don't know. So, I've totally missed that one. I'm interested. Like I say, this book seemed like it was just setting up a lot of things. Like, it's setting up this new colony in the old, outside of Ferryman Landing, right? With the houses that where the humans were kicked out of, and so that's a setup. Like, nothing's happening yet, but it's getting set up, and Simon's reach is expanding geographically.
I do have 2 questions for you guys. Like, for the first question, what did you guys think about that whole attack in the market? Me personally, I kind of felt like the humans were really bold, and I can't believe they thought they could win a fight, but apparently they could. If the elementals didn't show up, and that surprised me a little bit. I didn't expect that. What did you guys think of, like, how that whole fight went down and how much power some humans with some bats had? I mean, I don't know, a couple of guns too.
Yeah, like, I was. You can go first.
Go ahead, Casey.
No, go first.
So, I'm going to be really irritated if after all these books and setting us up in the sense that, there's no way humans can win, right? Because elementals can just freeze you or drown you or suck you into the ground. If humans actually end up posing a credible threat to the Terra Indigene, that's going to be a big reversal of the world building, and I'm going to be unhappy about that. But we can see that that there's levels of Terra Indigene, right? And that humans can hurt the shifters. We know that that's been going on since before the book started, with Daphne being killed, Sam's mom. And, the courtyard was already on alert because that had happened, at the very beginning of the first book. They knew that there were some bad-meaning humans out there and that they could do damage to some of the Terra Indigene. But the premise we've been given is that, they can't win the bigger war. They might win a battle here and there, but there's just no way they can win the war. So if it turns out that they can actually win the war, that's gonna be a problem for me.
But I mean, even on small scale, they shouldn't have been able to win this battle. They have a vampire, a vampire that turns into
mist,
smoke. mist and can just fly around and knock everybody out. Like, I mean, okay, yes, the wolves, and other animals, they are able to be shot in other things, but a vampire shouldn't be. You're a vampire. Like, how does that's not an even fight, in my opinion. Like, there shouldn't have been all of that. He should have stepped up and took care of it. I don't understand. I mean, just how paranormals work, and what I'm used to, that just didn't seem like they should have had a shot. I just don't think.
Yeah.
It seemed like there were a lot of humans involved. Like, there was a pretty good number of them that had guns and were causing chaos, and the Terran Dejin are still working as kind of good guys where they don't want to take out the innocent humans, so they're not willing to add to the collateral damage.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. I just don't. I mean, like, even if the wolves and the crows and the bears and everyone else is fighting hand to hand, the vampire could still run around taking people out, lowering that number of, humans that are fighting against them. I mean, he doesn't have to kill them. I mean, he can knock them out. There's other things he could do,
Or he can slit their throat really quickly.
Yeah, that fight was just weird. I mean, and I know the ultimate purpose was probably just to kill off a couple characters and just have this moment, where the tide could turn. But I just feel like that wasn't a good representation of how some inhuman people, animals and vampires would handle a situation like that. I just don't think.
Yeah. I was going to say, I thought that the fight was the cover up to go get the diary, because I felt like that was more important. The diary is more important to them. And they didn't know that Simon was actually going to be there, because people kept saying, we think Simon's being attacked. Like, we think it's an attack on Simon, not just like a generalized attack.
Yeah, it was, because they were in the, at the apartments, looking for the diary. They were. So it was kind of like a distraction, but it was, I don't know. I felt like that, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I just,
no, I know what you're saying. But yeah, like that
the fight was inconsistent with the world building.
Yeah, it should not have gone that long. Even like a bear can just hit 3 men and kill all 3 of them with his giant paw, but no, he's trapped in the bus that got turned over.
Yeah, he can't lift that bus and get out. Yeah.
Who gets stuck in a bus? Oh my god, no.
There's windows in a bus. You can get out, dude. You can get out.
You can rip the doors open. You can get out.
Yeah, it's like they just wanted to make them vulnerable, I guess. Like, the author was trying to make it seem like they aren't 100% safe because they're these animals, but I just don't buy it. I mean, they're supposed to be so scary, and then they're supposed to be, the humans are supposed to be fearful of them, and then you pretty much send them on like a suicide mission, but not really a suicide mission, because clearly they were winning some of it. I don't know. It's just, that's just my little 2 cents on that, but
yeah.
Yeah. So what about the deaths that resulted from that? What do you guys think about that?
The crow?
The crow and the officer?
Oh, right.
I forgot about the officer. I'm sorry. The crow was sad, but I don't know. We didn't really see her around.
They were red shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew one of those crows were going to die, because the one, I can't remember the name of her now. She was so stupid. Like, okay, you have, and even Simon like kind of makes a comment about this. Like, I'm going to have to talk to somebody later about this, because you have no survival instinct. Like, I'm telling you, it's danger. We got to go. And you're arguing with me about the stupid plate on this table. Get out of here. I'm like, this makes no sense.
But that was the crows in the last book too. Like, they were going to trash cans and picking up shinies and getting blown up by bombs.
Yeah.
And now they're at like tables and like, no, I have to stay and keep looking, even though you said our Meg says there's danger. I must look at the shiny.
And then they question him. Wait, Meg said it? Really? Are you sure it's danger? Okay. I'm like, this is not a discussion right now. Bring yourself on.
If Simon says there's danger, go.
Yeah.
Don't question if it was Meg. Don't only trust it if it was Meg. Trust Simon. He's the leader for a reason.
Yeah. I don't know. Just can't.
It was weird.
So I'm looking at the beginning of the fight, right? And there's something like 20 humans with weapons versus 6 of the good guys, including the officers. So it's Simon and Henry, Kowalski and Debony, and I guess a couple other people, right? So I don't see that are the vampires there for this?
Yes, Vlad was bringing up the rear. And there were also people in the back of the shop with guns because they shot from the back and he went back and killed them first.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I remember that much.
Yeah. So the pivotal thing, though, was Simon going back after his people were safe, but going back to help the human officers. That was pivotal, right?
Yeah. Well, because he was going to help his friend that was in the bus. I think that's where he originally was headed, and then he came back to help his human pack out. So
yeah. So I'm skimming over the fight scene, and it keeps switching back and forth from the fight to other things that are happening back at Howling Good Reads and with Nyx and so maybe that was why it seemed a little it was very chaotic to read, I think. Mm-hmm. So because that was when they were doing you're right, Casey, that they timed that break-in to search the apartments at the same time. So
which, of course, they explained to us beforehand. I feel like they were talking through, the art distraction and stuff, and then that happened. I'm like, well, she just told us, so there's no surprise.
That was very talking down to the reader. Let me explain what's happening, so you know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like funny because I'm telling you guys, this always happens when I finish the book. I'm like, oh, that was pretty good, or I feel one way about it, but when I start talking with you guys and start dissecting it, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what about this and this and this? And it's like slowly the things start breaking down for me when I actually start verbalizing what I liked and didn't like about the book.
Yeah, you have to put on
I agree.
blinders to read this book.
The experience of reading and then the experience of thinking about it or analyzing the read are very different, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like it's like a love affair. It's like you can meet a guy that's no good on paper, but the chemistry you just can't get past it, right?
Mm-hmm. And then when it's over, you're like, why did I even like that guy? He's got all these issues.
Right. Right. I could tell going into this going to be bad, but man, for a while it was really good.
Yeah.
And then you have all those fun memories 10 years later.
Yeah. I feel that way about J.R. Ward a lot. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. There are a few authors like that.
But I mean, I do feel like this series might be best to just glom it and be done with it. Like spreading it out gives us all this time to think about, like, how does that actually work? Uh-huh. But it might be a better experience to just go through and read them back to back to find out exactly how it all hangs together. But I do think it was a fun read. I'm still enjoying the series. This book was, I think, weaker than the first two. I think the structure of it didn't hang together quite as well. I think we're left with a lot more questions than answers. So it's definitely more of a series arc book than a book on its own,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And that totally makes me wonder, we only have 2 more books in this series, although I know the world continues. Mm-hmm. And there's another book, I think, that kind of just deviates a little bit within the same world that just came out this year. But from what I understand, this Simon Meg thing is only 5 books long. So we've got 2 books to figure out if they're going to be in a relationship or not, which I don't know.
Can we talk about this for a minute? Let's talk
do
about this for a minute? So the
I
last
think we should.
book was all about their sexual tension, right? Like she saw him naked and she freaked out and everybody was giving her those dating books and all they talked about was sex. And then this book, they talk about hand holding on the last page. I'm pissed.
And licking. So I think there's an implication, you know how when her blood can be this feel good stuff.
Mhm.
I think they're implying that just licking her skin is like a diluted version of that.
Which is weird because that's never happened before.
Yeah.
Right?
They're like, oh, give Meg the
Well, it
cookie
kinda
to
did.
give to Nathan. But, you know, I'm like, what? Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
make her
yeah,
hold
yeah,
on
yeah,
to
yeah.
it for a
Like,
few
it's
minutes.
different.
She didn't do that before.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a new element where, you know, her touch actually has some kind of power to it. And it changes all the popcorn, the butter licking kind of scenes, right? Where he's licking the popcorn butter off her fingers.
Like, it's disgusting. I'm sorry. Just stop.
Not a dog person.
Popcorn I can get because I do that all the time to myself, but just the random licking and like the hold the cookie, it'll make him feel better. That's weird. That didn't happen before. She just handed him a cookie and knocked him out. Remember that?
Right.
Like she just handed him.
I
the
do,
cookie.
because it was too strong. And they're like, maybe make those cookies a little smaller.
But now you have to hold on to it to make it stronger again.
Like, since when does chamomile knock out a 200-pound being? Like, that's weird.
Oh my gosh, it doesn't knock anyone out barely. I mean, let's keep it real.
Chamomile is a fraud. It doesn't. I don't know. It's supposed to be calming, I suppose.
Maybe.
But
yeah, no,
the
sexual tension just completely left this book, and that was one of the factors into making Meg like revert back to book one or revert back to almost childhood, because she's not even thinking about Simon physically or romantically at all. She's just like, la-di-da-di-da, I'm going to think about my visions and not think about any future stuff.
Did they even have much page time together? That would be interesting to go back and see how many scenes they were actually in together.
Not as many as before. No.
I feel like she almost thinks of him like a brother, like an annoying brother.
In this book, yes.
I don't think this is a spoiler. It might be a little spoiler, but you know, people have said to me that they were not happy with the Meg and Simon thing in the end. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh gosh. And you know, the reason why I say an annoying brother is like that scene where, you know, she cuts her hair and it's like this fuzz. And of course, Sam is like, can I touch your hair? It's like, you know, it's like baby fuzz. And she's like, fine, I don't care. And then Simon comes and he's like, oh, he feels like rebuffed. Like, what? You wouldn't let me touch your hair? I don't understand. I'm like, he feels offended. I'm like, get out of here.
He's still in love with her. She's like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
That's how it read in this book.
Yeah. That would be I don't think it's going to go that way, but that would be an interesting twist if, you know, having that really strong adult relationship was the thing that kept her blood prophet weirdness from overwhelming her, right?
Yeah.
You know? I think that would be an interesting way to deal with it.
Would she have prophecies during orgasms then?
Oh my gosh. Well, look, that would be a great way to get around cutting, right? Just
speak, prophet. And
let's have sex.
That's a whole different book.
I mean, the cutting is basically...
That's like an Alora's Cave book.
Oh, God.
That's hilarious. That's some fanfic. We need to write this.
People would love it, I'm telling you.
I don't know if I can. I'd be too horrified to write that.
I know, my head brain is going to some weird places right now, so we should move on.
Oh, God.
All right, we need a prophecy. Who's up?
Who's up? It'd be Simon every time. He wouldn't let anybody else near her. You know that.
Oh, no. Never.
Yeah, but he might get tired.
I mean,
you know,
turn into like some kind of sex fiend or something. Like, no.
He's a wolf. He should have stamina. Oh, God.
Yeah, right. But with how slow this whole relationship thing is going, I mean, it is going, this is like polar opposite of what we've been reading, in the recent history. So it's like we went from 100% like at 100 miles per hour to a snail's crawl, and like we barely get anything. And it's like, if it's true and people aren't in the result is going to be something we're not going to be happy with. I don't know. I feel like you shouldn't have introduced that dynamic to begin with. Have them just as, friends or,
there was
like family, but don't introduce that dynamic if you're just going to, like, the payoff is going to be not worth it. Don't introduce it. So I'm going to cross my fingers on this one. All my fingers.
I haven't read it. That's not a first-hand spoiler. That's some people are saying, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll be happy when we read it, and then we'll just rip it apart on the podcast and be like, here are all the plot holes and issues with their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still like the book. I still like the series. I still want the next book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no difference there. I'm still enjoying it. I still like the fact that it's, something different overall. It's not something I've read before. So that it gets major points for that. Even though we've been kind of nitpicking it and pulling it apart, I still like the book, and I'm still looking forward to seeing what happens next.
I'm kind of rooting for human extinction. I don't know about you guys.
Like 50-60% of the population needs to be wiped out.
Yeah.
They can start over.
Fresh start.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't mind it because I feel like there needs to be, even though this whole time I still don't feel like the stakes have been high enough. I just want something major, something traumatic, something world-changing, and we haven't gotten it yet.
No.
I think they're setting us up a little bit for the, how do I put this? For the cello, like the European segment to be, lost my train of thought here, but like what's going on in Europe is not the same as what's going on in whatever she's calling America, Thasia, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like Thasia is a little bit behind the same wave or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think that the series is going to be like, the next book is probably going to be about taking out Nicholas Scratch, and then the last book is going to have to be about whatever's going on in Europe. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing was kind of weird too. They're like smuggling people to Europe, sending food and stuff to Europe.
Right, so they're inducing a food shortage in Thasia in order to foment unrest, right? To get humans to be mad at the elementals or at the Terra Indigene. And because of Meg, pretty much, Simon has figured out what's going on and shared it with the elementals, and they're like, okay, we can put a stop to that. So they're controlling the movement of the food now, and they're preventing it from leaving the continent. And there might be some localized issues, right? But for the most part, they cut off that strategy. Right?
Yeah.
So now it's just a matter of what happens next.
Right.
And there's a lot, you're still seeing the propaganda that it's like, oh, it's all their fault, and people, humans are kind of believing it, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, even with the news kind of outing everything at the end a little bit, so the people kind of know, well, the others aren't causing the shortages.
They're still going to be
curious
angry.
to see how that develops. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they don't believe it necessarily, right?
It's fake news.
Shades of, yeah. I was
oh God!
say.
Don't give me one fake news. Oh,
I'm sorry. Too many parallels.
No, but I was thinking the same thing. And this was written in 2015, so that's kind of freakish. But
yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of parallels to things that are going on today.
Oh gosh, aren't there ever? Okay. Yeah.
I
Well,
just wish there were some Terra Indigene that would straighten shit out.
oh, I know, right? Can we
Please.
think about
Wipe out
Like,
60%
I just
of the
need,
population.
I just need
yeah.
I just need air to come down and squish a certain 10 people in the world, and that will.
You're like, just
You
cut
only
off the
have
head,
10
right?
people? I have
That's,
a lot more than that, unfortunately.
you're right. You're right. We probably should avoid politics. So
Yeah.
I'll stop.
Girl, you
I'll
know,
stop this train
that's
of thought
dangerous.
right
You
here.
open that jar. It's dangerous. Danger zone.
Yeah. Yeah. But good fiction does that. You know, it draws out parallels to reality, and I think that's the dangers of propaganda are absolutely an ongoing concern, especially with the internet and the availability of viral news that may or may not be fact checked and stuff like that. So,
But that just goes to show how no matter what time it is, things just like they keep resurfacing. We never learn the lesson.
Yep.
I mean, because books think even The Handmaid's Tale, right? That's an old book. Things are still, we can we can draw direct lines to things that are happening today. Just like with this book, wow, we just never learn, do we? Because we can look at old books and see stuff that's happening now. It's like, wow.
Was there anything else we wanted to talk about?
I think I've covered all of my things I'd like to say on this book. I'm just looking forward to see what's next. I'm waiting for that book where I'm just like all in love. Like, oh my gosh. I think honestly, I'm gonna keep it real. I think I'm waiting for Simon and Meg to hook up or something.
Yes.
I think I'm secretly, not so secretly now waiting for that.
Sorry, not sorry, but it's to happen. Yeah, that's my biggest issue with this book is that they went from all this sexual tension and thinking about each other naked to not even touching, basically. Or he's gonna pet her hair. They're not together. Yeah. They're not thinking about kissing or anything. And again, the last chapter, he's angry that a girl is holding Meg's hand. I think it was Mary Lee was holding her hand.
Yeah, I was trying to. Where it can mean friendship, or it can also mean more than friendship.
Yeah, and I was like,
it's funny because you guys are the ones that I love the paranormal romance, and you guys are the ones that are like, I don't really.
I love paranormal romance,
and so now we're. I know, but you didn't want to you were anyway. I felt like I was the advocate for paranormal romance, and you guys were like, I didn't really like that, and now
let me explain. I love paranormal romance.
But no. But romance is totally optional in urban fantasy, and you can't expect it. It may or may not be there, and now that's your big complaint.
This is why I feel this way. I feel like don't tease it. I've read plenty of urban fantasy that had zero romance factor, and I was okay with it because I knew there's no romance in here. We're just doing the thing. We're trying to save the world for these reasons, and I was cool with it. But don't dangle this carrot. And then not deliver.
Man, there's always
two things.
I don't think I've read any of them that don't have some. Go ahead.
I was going to say two things. One, I love paranormal romance, but I hate alpha assholes. And so if a man is going to compare a woman to a horse during sex, I'm going to hate that book. Just gonna throw that out there again. And two, I don't mind a slow burn. Adam and Mercy from the Mercy Thompson series had a very slow burn. It took them a while to get together. I'm totally fine with that. I love that.
Way more than 5 books.
But this is a back and forth. This would be if in book 3, Mercy and Adam didn't even talk or kiss or try to hold hands or do anything. And I'd be like, what the fuck is going on between these two people?
Yeah, that's true. Because in the Mercy series, that whole time we knew we were inching toward that the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was clear.
Yeah, I felt so I didn't do the whole reread with you guys, so the first few books in that series are far away in my memory, but I remember being a little bugged by how slow it was. Just make up your mind already.
I mean, she brought in that weird triangle, kind of squarish thing.
With the vampire.
Yeah.
God, please, let's not remind ourselves of that horrid thing.
So it was a slow, weird build, and there were issues, but You always knew
Right.
that.
And Riley Jensen, so Carrie Arthur's, that was one of my first urban fantasies, and she was just all over the map. She was, banging away with everybody that came along, and it was, that was so, I have no expectations when it comes to urban fantasy about what's going to happen. So.
Well, Nicola, let me ask you this. J.R. Ward's BDB series, do you consider that urban fantasy or paranormal romance?
Oh, that question. I consider paranormal romance because every book has a couple and the couple has a happily ever after. Even if the happily ever after is completely contrived and managed by breaking all of the world building rules.
Even the later books, though, the later books don't necessarily have a couple.
Yeah, they do.
There's just a lot of crap.
They all have a primary couple. No, the later books all have all the books have a primary couple.
See, to me,
okay,
no. You guys, we're going to save this for another, because we could spend 20 minutes debating this. But, I just asked that because, like, at the beginning, even though I agree with you, they do kind of have a lot of romance. I think those are more urban fantasy just because the degree of other things going on, and it's just not about the couples. It's about, like, the world at large and good and bad. And
that's true. You can talk about the proportion of the series arc versus the couple,
right,
and argue about that. But
but
that's my opinion, and I realize there's controversy. So,
oh gosh,
that's my answer to that question.
Casey, did you read that series?
What?
Did you read that series, Casey?
Like, I stopped at Lover at Last, because I was so angry with what was happening. But I may go back and read them again. But yeah, I kind of agree. Like, they have their main couples, so it's more paranormal romance, but the plots are so thick that it's shades of gray. Like, it's...
Yeah.
No, it's got nothing to do with 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, gosh. No. Oh. Thank God. Thank God for that.
Right. Okay, moving right along.
Yeah. All right. Are we done? If we're done, we should rate this thing before we... All right. Let's rate it. I think we're pretty done. Nicola, how about you go first?
Okay. I'm going to say that... this is hard. I still want to give it a 4, but it might be a 3. So... You can't read this book by itself. If you try to read it by itself, you're not going to like it. So... all on its own, it's kind of a 3. Part of a good series, it's a 4.
Cool. Casey, how about you?
I'm in the same boat. Like, I read this book in one night. I adored it. I want the next book right now. I need to know what's going to happen with Meg and Simon. I'm invested in this series. But like we just spent the last hour talking, there are a lot of issues with this book. So I don't know if I should go with the 3 stars for the issues or a 4-star because I want to keep reading.
Well, I'll tell you how I'm going to go. I'm going to go with the 3 stars. I am still vested. I am still interested. I do still like it. But there were some issues here for me. And the fact that it's always a bad sign when I fall asleep. Okay.
Yeah.
And that happened for me. And it was just so much stuff, like lots of explaining and lots of wordiness, and I feel like sometimes that drug it down. And it's not normal for me to just fall asleep. I'm wide awake, but I'm like, oh no. So I already knock it down a little bit when that happens to me, because obviously I'm not engaged in what's happening. So that's always not good. But I'm hopeful. I'm looking forward to the next one, but this one does get a 3 for me.
I like how you are so unambiguous, Tamara. You just always know. You're like, no, this is a 3. I'm like, well, if you look at it this way, it could be a 4. If you look at it that way, it could be a 2. I don't know. You're like, no, it's a 3.
No. I know what it is. No, I don't know. But sometimes I do teeter. Sometimes I do. But for this one, I just didn't have that problem for some reason.
I mean, it didn't put me to sleep. If I had fallen asleep, I'd probably go with a 3 like you. But I was invested. Like, I kept going. I was like, shit, what's going to happen next in the next 2 days?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, I just felt like the structure of the book was kind of
Mhm.
poor. It was a little bit flat. It didn't have a point where you're like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for in this book. It was just like, well, that happened and something else happened and we're getting ready for something to happen and now it's
Mhm.
ended,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. I just want higher stakes, higher drama. I just want everything elevated. It was kind of like just this muted story for me, like high level, like just everything was just there. It was fine, but nothing elevated my emotion during this whole book. I want something.
Yeah, it's positioning for the next book or two.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Let's cross our fingers. So the next book is Marked in Flesh. And so hopefully you will be reading that with us as well. So we will come back here next month and we'll talk about Marked in Flesh. So get excited. Woo! Yay!
Yeah. Pick it up, read it, watch the hashtag.
Yes. Hashtag 3bloggers1series. Comment as you read along. Comment to us and let us know if we're crazy after you listen to this podcast. Yeah. We want to hear all the stuff. Tell us everything. All right. So I guess we're done here, ladies. Yes?
I think so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode. We will catch you guys next month. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's book chat episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy all things bookish, including author interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.